Say cheesecake. We're gonna make one of the best cheesecakes I have ever had, and I know that sounds pretty pompous, but I call it my OC cheesecake because I'm not from New York, and it's kind of like it, but I'm from Orange County, so let's just call it that. It's rich, it's decadent, and a little is going to go a long way because it is so rich. But I used 2 pounds of cream cheese, but different kinds. And tons of ways to top it, but really it's so perfect as it is, you don't have to. I'm going to show you a bunch of tricks and tips because if you don't know these things, it's going to just seem intimidating. So I don't want that. I want you to be able to knock it out and be real happy with it. So let's get started. Okay, you start off by making the crust first, and you're going to need a 9-inch spring-form pan and parchment paper. You could use a little bit of the butter along the sides, but personally, you know I'm a nut for parchment paper, and I like the way it separates and leave a really clean line. And the crust is your absolute very basic crust. Anytime you want to make a cheesecake, this crust is just, there's not a lot of change in the crust, unless you're me, in which case you're going to add flavor. You have a cheesecake that has 3 layers. It has the crust, it has the cheesecake, and then it has a very thin sweet sour cream topping. 3 chances to flavor this thing, so I'm taking advantage of all 3 layers. So the first thing I'm going to do is get my pan ready. And you can see that there's a little divot already in the edge of the pan, you know, right where this meets, because this separates. This is 2 pieces. If you didn't know that, it's 2 pieces. Okay, so right inside along the line, there's a little divot. Can you see that? Well, that's exactly where I'm going to put this. It just fits perfectly. And I do want a smooth edge in. And I'm sticking it right inside that, so it kind of holds its place for me. I don't have to add anything like butter or shortening or anything to adhere it. It sticks pretty good. That's it. All right. Your crust is always going to be graham crackers, butter, and sugar. Depending on what kind of cheesecake you're making, I add a little bit of cinnamon to my crumbs. Just like I said, it's a blank palette. I want to just give it a little bit of something. You can use low-fat graham crackers. You can use the chocolate graham crackers. You can use cookies. You can use the hard cookies. You can use crackers, just regular crackers. That's a different flavor altogether. And if you're going to do crackers, I would do like a spice, cardamom. You know I'm a nut for cardamom, thyme, rosemary, that kind of stuff, and just really change the flavor of this amazing cheesecake. So, and when I make my crumbs, I pulverize the whole box at one time and keep them in an airtight container, so I can just scoop it as I need it, rather than doing it one at a time. So you've got your crumbs, you've got your sugar, and just a little bit of cinnamon and melted butter. And this is going to look like wet sand when I'm done. I've got the oven going 350. Should be beeping shortly. So that's it. It's just a wet sand kind of look. And this goes right in. You don't have to do anything to it because there's already butter in in this. And then you get to have fun. Scatter it around. And then start pressing down. And you really only want the bottom of the pan. Some of them, cheesecakes, have it going all the way up the side. Okay, I don't care for that, but this is your cheesecake. You do what makes you happiest. So by pressing it down, I'm making it really compact so that it'll hold its shape. Once it's baked, it's going to be firm. So but if I were to just lightly pack it in and bake it, then I would just have firm crumbles. That's it. So I'm packing it in really tightly. I want nice clean edges and make sure that it's even, and you can feel that it's even. All right, sorry guys. So there's two ways to do this. You're going to want to do a water bath either way. And a water bath, a bain-marie, which is just a water bath, is going to keep moisture in the oven. So you can take a piece of foil, make sure it's one solid piece of foil, and cover it all the way up to the side so that no water comes in or nothing else goes out. I am not going to do that on mine, but I do want you to see how it's done. I am going to just put it on a cookie sheet. When you when you take it in and out, it's going to slide up against the racks and it could tear, and you don't want that. So I am, however, going to just take another piece of anything that's oven proof and put water in it. It doesn't really matter. Half of this, it doesn't really matter how much water. I mean, you want, if this were a bain-marie and you could put the water in here, you have to have foil on this, otherwise it will the water will come into the cheesecake. Who in the world would want that? So with the foil on it, you can put the water right in here. I'm still going to go ahead and just leave that there and put the water in the bottom rack and bake that for, let's see, probably about 12 to 15 minutes at 350 degrees. So then you take that out, and then we're going to work on the yummy stuff, I think. Okay, so it's in the oven, and that little bit of cinnamon is going to give it such a nice aroma. Here's the fun part, and I love making cheesecake because it just looks so intimidating. It's not really. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ingredients to the actual cheesecake. So, but a couple of tricks. That's where you're gonna win. Forgot my vanilla. Okay, starting off with your ingredients. I use 2 pounds of cream cheese in my cheesecake. And you remember how I always say, if there's a chance that I can substitute something that's low fat or fat free or sugar free, but not jeopardize the integrity of the item, I'll do it. Well, this is awesome, because I'm only, of the 4 bricks of cream cheese, I'm only using 1 regular cream cheese. Then I've got a low-fat cream cheese, and then I've got a Greek cream cheese, and that Greek is just enough tart to really pull everything together. And then I've got New Chantel. New Chantel is a lower fat cream cheese. So, and you could use 2 low-fat cream cheeses. You could use 4 low-fat cream cheese. I just kind of like mixing it up because, like I said, I don't want to miss out on that bite. So you've got cream cheese, sugar, sour cream. Cornstarch is a huge trick to making a successful cheesecake, because it really, it's going to bind everything and keep it nice and tight. Some people use gelatin. Okay. I I tried it once and I didn't care for it. I didn't care for it. So that's all right. And lemon juice and lemon zest. Now, I take the lemon zest and I zest it just as finely as I possibly can, and then I chop it up even more because I'm not looking to make this a lemon cheesecake. And I want the zest just so small it almost dissolves. I want what it brings, but I don't really want it to come to the whole party. So so there we go. And quality vanilla. And I gotta fill up my vanilla bottle. You know, I've got tons. So let's play. Let's see, can you see this? All right, so I've got my 4 cream cheeses here. Isn't that crazy? That's just crazy. Now, another trick to a smooth cheesecake is scraping your bowl often. I mean often. You know, I'm always telling you to scrape your bowl anyways, but this one, yeah, you got to do it a lot. So I'm just going to get it going. And then I'm going to add the sugar. Better? Better. All right, I'm gonna scrape it. In the meantime, I am keeping an eye on my crust. If you don't scrape it, you're gonna get the meat of this all nice and creamy and sweet and wonderful, but then when you flip it over, all that gunk is gonna be on the bottom, and I don't mean gunk, I mean this cream cheese, but we want it there. Get way, way down. And you're gonna do this a lot. I mean, because the cream cheese, you know, I love my KitchenAid, but I keep going back to that one little divot on the bottom. It just really does hide stuff. Then I'm going to add 1 egg at a time. And I'm going to scrape it. I got a heavy-duty scraper because I'm telling you, you can see how creamy this is already? And we're not done, but it's very creamy. Well, that's great. That's what we want. But we want all of our ingredients to come and play. So even scrape the beaters, scrape everything you want. Get it all, baby. All right. know I'm going to scrape it again. Honestly, I'm probably going to do it like 4 or 5 more times before I'm done, and I'm almost done. Now, every time you add your eggs, that's a good time to remember to add your vanilla. You know, it's funny, down to the bottom of this jar, there's a ton of vanilla bead tar. Can you see that down there? The vanilla beans, those little black, beautiful spots. I'm going to mix it, and then I'm going to add a couple other ingredients. I mean, scrape it. You can really tell, because when you're doing it and you're scraping it, you look down to where your paddle just left that, see that line? You look all the way down to that, and you'll see that there's no chunks there. You definitely want a chunk-free cheesecake. So I'm going to add some sour cream. Lemon juice with the zest. And again, this is not lemon cheesecake, but that lemon really pulls in the tart snap. And cornstarch. And cornstarch, like I said, is a huge ingredient and a huge trick for a good cheesecake. That's going to go for a bit because I've added dry into wet. I want to make sure that it doesn't clump. So I'm going to whip that a little bit longer. And scrape it again. This one, I'm scraping mostly because I added that dry, and I want to make sure that you don't want clumps. That's just the bottom line. You don't want clumps. That's a huge trick. You get that down, you got the rest. It's just a piece of cake. Yeah, a piece of cheesecake. All right. I'm going to let that go for a couple minutes, and my crust is done. That's it. No clumps. All the way down at the bottom. If you want to know what your cheesecake is going to taste like, this is the proof, baby. All right. So let me bring you back. Okay, this is done. Man, that cinnamon is just a knockout smell. Can you see the sides of the bowl? Perfect. And it's going to all go in. Yay, clump free. This is definitely something you want to make sure to get every little bit in. Okay, see, no clumps. All right, at this point, rather than leaving it piled up like that, and because I'm particular like that, that's still hot, I'm gonna go ahead and just flatten it out. Now, I'm not going to wash my mixer bowl yet. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Can I just drink this? Fine, I won't, but I want to. All right, so that bain-marie is now starting to get really hot, that hot water bath. It's gonna go in. I'm gonna turn the oven up to 400. I'm gonna bake it for 30 to 35 minutes. Now, here's another trick, because this is where you just don't leave it. You just don't put it in and leave it and then put it in the refrigerator. That is not how cheesecakes work. They're big babies and they want a lot of attention. So I got the crust at 350 for about 15 minutes. Turned up my oven to 400 for about 30 minutes. As soon as that 30 minutes is up, I'm going to lower my temperature to about 200 to 225. Let's stick with 225. I'll keep it there for 45 minutes. Then I'm gonna crack the door open a little bit. I'm gonna turn the oven off, I'm gonna crack the door open a little bit, and I'm gonna put the top on. And then it's gonna stay there until the cows come home. When do the cows come home exactly? I don't know what time that is. All right, so let's go to the next step. So in the same bowl that I just mixed that in, I'm going to make the topping. And the topping is what makes it pretty. But it also makes it good. It's a snappy sour cream kind of topping. All right. And all I'm going to do is with the same everything. And all this, that's fine too. So I'm going to scrape all this stuff, because I'll use it. Okay, so I've got some sour cream. A little bit of sugar and a little bit of lemon juice. I'm not going to use the whole thing. That's it. I'm going to leave it just like this until it's time to use, which we're looking at maybe about an hour. So that'll sit and we'll go to the rest. So it's out of the oven. It's got a real good golden crust around the edge, and the center is still a little firm, real soft. That's perfect. All right, I'm going to take that cream cheese mixture that I made. I'm going to put it right on top. And the reason I'm pouring it on here is so that it's not so much weight on a very delicate cheesecake. And this is all very hot. And I'm going to spread this out. I have since turned the oven off. And it will stay in the open oven. Well, it's not going to be real open. It's going to be just slightly ajar for, it can stay there for up to an hour. Okay, so it's been chilling in the refrigerator. Do it at least 6 hours because you need it to set good and solid. I like to leave mine overnight, and this is what you get, and it's so worth it. And like I said in the beginning of the video, I showed you a couple of options on how to do it. I made a form just so that you can see the difference. Okay, so this is the cheesecake, and I always, when I put it in the refrigerator, I always put it on top of just anything, a parchment paper or paper towels or something, because what happens is the butter in the crust, it will leak out. Now, when you make this, and all you have to do is tuck it up into form the pan. It doesn't really matter what you're going to do with this because this is not important. But when you, I made it without, but I made this particularly just so you can see the option. So when you take it out, you're going to see, it's all hard now, but you're going to see all that yellow. That's the butter that had seeped through. Now, the thing with putting a foil on your pan, you're going to take it in and out of the oven a couple of times, or even just to put it in once. And this bottom part will scrape against your rack and it'll leak. And if it leaks, it's going to fall on the bottom of your oven and burn. And that's just a mess you don't want. Partially why you do this. This is also used if you're going to do a bain-marie. Most of the times people do a bain-marie, which is just a water bath. Such fancy words. And so they'll put this cheesecake, the foil wrapped cheesecake, in a deep cookie sheet and then pour water around it. That's just a water bath. As you saw, my bain-marie is just a little bit different. And the only reason I use that is to keep the moisture in the oven so that it doesn't crack. So this is your foil option, okay? Now, and I don't need that either, but I do need this. Okay, so I have the spring, of course, the spring form pan, and the reason this is perfect is because when you unlatch it, you're going to loosen up the sides, but the bottom is still attached. So you're going to poke this through, and this is cold, so yeah, perfect. I'm not worried about any of that mess right now. The whole butter thing, boy, very interesting. And you don't use all that much. So I'm just going to very gently peel off that parchment paper that I had put on. Okay, so I'm just going to transfer this to my cake plate. And what I did just a minute ago is I just kind of went through and slid my spatula or knife or whatever, preferably a spatula, just kind of scooted it around to make sure that it would separate. And then just slide it off. There you go. That is my OC cheesecake, and it is absolutely decadent.
That was fun. Don't forget to like and subscribe.